All right. Um, well, today is Valentine's Day, and hopefully, many of you are just about to go out to dinner or ready to pour yourself a bath or a whiskey or what have you. But I wanted to just take a moment and talk about a bill today that was brought up in the Senate, and that's Senate Bill 2140. This is the bill that caps insulin, the monthly cost of insulin, and as well as the monthly cost of all diabetic and insulin supplies. I think this is a really interesting bill, and it's very it helps illustrate really this chasm that we have between principles of political philosophy and how politicians or legislators vote. So what we have is a situation in which it is generally understood and believed that people are being charged too much for their insulin and maybe for their diabetic supplies. And I think the data bears out that it's exceedingly high, far surpasses anything that we might otherwise expect. And naturally, like many drugs, this one is not alone, but is certainly people need it to live. Type 1 diabetics need it to live. And so the thought is, well, gosh, it's the price is too high. The price to make it is not nearly as much, and so there's a tremendous profit being made by the big bad pharmaceutical companies or PBMs. And so how do we control this? How do we address this issue? And of course, the answer, if you were to ask your third grader or fifth grader, the answer would be, well, don't let them charge so much. Tell them that they can't charge that much. That sounds easy. That's what this bill does. This bill says that a person can't be charged more than $25 a month for their insulin and $25 a month for their diabetic supplies, and that no copay and no deductible can be applied toward it, or that people wouldn't be forced to pay a copay or deductible in receiving these. So it completely flips the insurance contract upside down. Here's the problem. Not only is it, I mean, frankly, just kind of childish to say, oh, a company is charging too much, the government will just jump in and say, you can't charge more than X amount. I mean, this is a very progressive approach, a very heavy-handed government approach. It was the approach used by FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, when there was price caps and wage floors and price floors, and everything was controlled because, of course, people that are in favor of that think that government not only has the right and the proper place to do those things, but actually has the wisdom, the aggregate wisdom, I guess, to be able to do it in a manner that's best for people. Now, the problem is, and Senator Sean Cleary helps illustrate this for me, and I'm bringing him up. A lot of times I don't like to bring senators up by name, but he's been tweeting about it, and so he's happy with his position of supporting it, and he's happy about the bill. And what he tweeted is this. He's quoting a newspaper article. Senator Sean Cleary, Republican from Bismarck, argued that, quote, just because this impacts a small amount of people is not reason to discard it, end quote. He called the bill an incremental step in improving drug affordability for North Dakotans. Well, first off, let's just quickly address that help a small amount of people. So 80% of people on various insurance policies cannot be affected. We can't control this thing. We can't control the price of insulin for 80% of people in North Dakota. And so it's only 20% of people in North Dakota whose insurance policies could be affected in theory. And so it would help, presumably, if diabetics are distributed evenly, it would help, maybe tops 20% of type 1 diabetics in North Dakota. And so we have to recognize that we're then having government intervene extensively, flipping insurance contracts on their head, to try and address a problem in a manner that is completely antithetical to how we should be approaching it, which is take a look at where removing government can help. Because remember, what I always say is, if there's a problem in the market, it's almost always, if not always, government's fault. And so removing government from implementing that faulty policy is the way to do it, not to add additional faulty policy on top. Additionally, in testimony, I'm sure in testimony, but also on the floor, while they were hearing the bill on the floor and before their vote, the senators acknowledged that this cost was going to be passed on to the insurance company. And of course, again, like a third grader or fifth grader, you would assume then they'd say, oh, okay, well, then it gets passed on to the insurance company, and that's the end of the story. However, a thinking person realizes that that's not where it stops. The cost gets passed on from the insurance company then to the subscribers, to the policy holders. That's the way it works. That's the real world. So keep that in mind, okay? Now, Senator Cleary's next tweet is the one that really gets me most. And that's where he says, hold on a second. Yeah. Quote, while the free market is the reason why our country is one of the greatest, most prosperous, most innovative countries on earth, a very, very true, accurate, and good statement to make, okay? While the free market is the reason why our country is one of the greatest, I'll say the greatest, most prosperous, most innovative countries on earth, for those folks who are paying hundreds of dollars a month for insulin, the free market is not working, end quote. Okay, this is the problem, and this is why we need to think deeper, right? You can't, if it's something that your fifth grader is going to give as a policy response to a problem, the effort needs to be to go a little deeper. So the free market is not, and this is what the Democrats always do, and that's why there's very little difference between a lot of the Republicans in office and the Blue Dog Democrats from some years ago. The free market did not get us here. Okay, and I know that's hard for people to believe, but the free market did not cause this price problem with insulin. And therefore, Senator Cleary is 100% wrong in blaming the free market for this. This is where we go astray every time. People look at a problem with something going on in the market, in pricing, and then because we allegedly have a free market, which we don't, they say whatever problem we're experiencing is because of capitalism or the free market. But we don't have true capitalism. We don't have a free market, so we have to dig deeper. Now, I wrote the little list here so that I don't forget, but here's why insulin is the price it is. Okay. And this, by the way, and I've talked about this in other videos, this is the same reason some other prescription drugs are exceedingly high priced in the United States. Okay. For insulin specifically, we restrict and prohibit foreign imports. Okay. Does that make sense to you? If insulin is so high priced by these manufacturers, why don't we import it from other countries? Which would increase competition, which would give customers, people with diabetes, more options. That would help lower the price, right? That's government's fault, 100%. Next, FDA restrictions on suitable alternatives. So there are alternatives. There are insulins that aren't the 5-star insulin that's on the market right now. There are other insulins that are just as good or 99.9% as good, and they are not allowed on the market. So if someone can't afford the 5-star insulin, why aren't we allowing them to get the 4.5-star insulin or the 4.9-star insulin? So FDA is prohibiting that. Again, it's taking away competitors, lower priced competition from the market, and just having that lower priced competition in the market would lower the price of the high priced insulin on the market. You see, again, so that's significant reason number 2, directly from the government. Government reason number 3, extreme FDA regulations in bringing a drug to market. It takes 12 years and $2.7 billion to bring a drug to market. Okay, these drug companies need to price their drugs high to try and recoup their costs. If they can't recoup their costs, they're not going to do research and develop new drugs. The cost to develop new drugs is artificially imposed upon the drug companies by the FDA. Okay, that's reason number 3. We need to decrease some of these FDA regulations and restrictions. Okay, number 4. This is not a direct government policy, but this is where government policy fails. There's something called evergreening. So although insulin was developed so many years ago, the patent for it is no longer good. What they do is they tweak ever so slightly something that has no relevance whatsoever, but they'll do it the tiniest little tweak and then get a patent on that. And then they continue it. So it's called evergreening. They just keep the patent going, even though it's effectively 99.99999% the same product. They can keep this patent protection going indefinitely. That's an easy fix from government. Another is the revolving door between big pharma and lobbyists and the FDA itself. And we see this in other areas, certainly the finance industry, banking, the treasury, and the Federal Reserve. So you've got this revolving door, and these people, it's just so incestuous, and they, you pat my back, I'll pat yours kind of a thing. That needs to stop. There easily could be legislation introduced, federal legislation introduced to stop that. There is non-transparent pricing schemes going on, and that should be addressed on a federal level, could probably be addressed a little bit on a state level. And the last thing is that there should not be allowed, and there should be legislation which prohibits a big pharmaceutical company from paying off a little company from bringing a drug to market, because that's going on as well. There is a reason why they see the free market allows for any competition on the market. That's how you get the best product for the best price. That's how you get the most competition. It's how you get the greatest consumer choice. But when you have government imposing itself in these ways, then you get high prices. Now, I will grant you there's very little that the state can do. This is a federal government problem. But we need to recognize that the state can't fix what the federal government has broken. The reason they're doing this in the North Dakota legislature is because they have so much money that it's very easy to feel so compassionate and so beneficent. We've got this money. Let's make these drugs super cheap. Now, why don't they do it for other things? Right? Because insulin's what's caught on. That's the trendy thing that the Democrats started up, right? They tried to get that passed federally, and then they bashed Republicans for not passing it. And the Republicans said, "Hey, wait a minute! No, we want price caps on insulin too. We want it at $50 instead of $25. It's all crap. This is not an approach. This is not a free market approach. It's not a capitalist approach. It's not a conservative approach. It's not a libertarian approach. The gall that elected officials have in thinking how we fix a complex market problem caused by government intervention is just to tell companies they can't charge more. How weak that is as a form of thinking on how to handle policy, economic policy. It blows me away. So there's nothing to be proud of here. I will tell you that Senator Clemens, Senator Kanianen, Senator Diane Larson, or is it Doug Larson? Oh, shoot, I should have checked. One of the two gets credit. Senator Meyer, Senator Kristen Roars, and Senator Shively. Kudos to you. I'm not sure what your reasons were. I don't know if they were based in political principle and wisdom. But whatever it was, you voted the right way. All of the others voted the wrong way. And I know it's hard, isn't it? It's supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be hard to vote according to principle. It's supposed to be hard to say no to spending money to help people that need help. But it's not your money. That's the thing. See, anyone can go sit in your seat and look at how much money's coming in and then spend it on all the things that are so good and so cool, right? Like that fifth grader talked about. Oh, let's see. Oh, hey, so I'm just learning. I'm going to try, let's see. Show. Oh, look at that. I'm going to learn how to do this. Here's the deal with Luke and Shiloh. Luke and Shiloh have a great podcast. You guys should check it out. Kathy Monty says, big fail. And Holly Beeler says, we pay so much for prescriptions because we subsidize every other country's low prices. You know, in certain forms, that is definitely true. And then this one is a little bit more, let's see here. Patents and copyright are by definition government-granted monopolies on products. They need to either be abolished or restricted to individual independent inventors and creators. It's ironically defended to supposedly help the little guy, but it's overwhelmingly abused by giant corporations. Well, you know, I think that whole patent protection and copyright is something that can be tweaked, but I can't imagine if we didn't have patent protection, because Mr. Hoffman, who's going to develop drugs if it takes $2.7 billion to develop them? And okay, let's just say that the FDA isn't a group of stupid jackwads, and it only costs, $500 million or $200 million. They still need to make that money back, right? So it's not a money losing venture. The other thing is, all good things in the market have a profit motive, a profit incentive. And so they need to make a profit. If the second they invent something, it's open, well, then we lose that incentive. And that might be, in your opinion, morally optimal. It might be an indication of a truly virtuous society. But I know for a fact that we would be far less well off, because there would be so many inventions, so many medicines, so many things that make our lives so much better, so much safer, that would never have come to market had there not been patent protection to really solidify that profit motive. Because you think about it, the inventors, you may have a love of something, and you may certainly want to do good for mankind. But the idea of being able to come up with the next brilliant idea and strike it rich, and you can get that house, and you can set up a trust fund for your kids, and there's nothing wrong with that motive to invent things, I think. So anyway, I don't want to get too deep there, but the FDA is a group of JWs. Is that jackwad? The FDA is a group of jackwads. I definitely agree with you. Anyway, that's all I have for you. I just wanted to lay it out there. Caps on insulin is a feel-good thing. It's a kind of a virtue signaling thing, maybe for some. We want to do good, but I would suggest, again, that legislators, elected officials, revisit that if you want to do good, if you want to be charitable, if you want to be compassionate, don't do it as an elected official. Do it as an individual. Use your own time, use your own money to be compassionate. People's tax money is not for your compassion. It's not for your generosity. It's not for your benevolence. So with that, I am out. You guys have a great night, and that'll do it. Bye-bye.